Welcome to this week's episode of the Rangeless Travel Podcast, where every Tuesday we come on and share travel stories and tips to inspire you to book that next adventure. This week we are talking safety, because whether you are a man or a woman traveling solo, or you're traveling in a group of friends or in a couple, there are times in which you potentially are going to feel unsafe or need to do things to preemptively stay safe. This is both for your physical safety and your physical well-being, as well as your personal possessions and the things that you travel with, because not everything on the road is super easy to replace. Some things, if it's stolen or misplaced, your trip's over. Mm-hmm. So we've both been in situations where we've felt unsafe to different degrees. I mean, we've been in lots of situations that we've felt unsafe to different degrees of, you know, just like personal, a little bit of anxiety to actual, like, life-threatening danger. Yeah. But most of the time, I would say I feel safe overall traveling, whether I'm traveling as a solo female or I'm traveling with friends or in a couple.
Yeah, the majority of the time you feel very safe. Yeah.
Most of the time I feel safe, but there's definitely times where I haven't.
There's a couple times where it happened.
Yeah. What was, like, one of the times where you felt the most unsafe at, like, any point in the travel, whether it be, like, by yourself or us traveling together?
One that springs to mind is recently when we were in Sumatra. We just landed in Medan in the airport, and it took us way longer to get to Medan, where we were supposed to pick up rental bikes, than we anticipated. It was supposed to be like an hour, and I think it took us something like 3.5 hours to get there and get the bikes and get going, which meant we would plan to have like a 6-hour ride that day on the motorbikes to Bukit Lawang, which is like the orangutan conservatory in the jungle. But the problem with that was, because it took us so long to get to Medan, we are now going to be riding through the middle of the night. We weren't going to get there until like 11 p.m.
Yeah, neither one of us liked that.
No.
But we kind of didn't have any other option. Like, we had booked a room. We got so delayed. Was the flight delayed?
No, the flight wasn't delayed. There was supposed to be a train that wasn't.
Yes, there was supposed to be a train. There was a train.
But it wasn't until 5.
Yeah, so we missed the train by like 3 minutes, and then there wasn't another one for like 3 or 4 hours later. So we had to take a minibus and an alternate route, which ended up taking so much longer than we expected to.
And the traffic was crazy.
And the traffic was bad, and then they didn't drop us off where we needed to go. So then we had to walk with all of our stuff, double packed.
Blistering heat.
Oh, yeah, that was like not it. But I felt safe during most of that time.
All of that period, yes, we were safe, 100%. But then we got on the motorbikes and we started heading north to Bukit Lawang. And we hadn't eaten yet since we got to Sumatra. So we were driving along, and it's getting dark. It is late evening, starting to get dark, like nighttime. And we saw what initially looked like a cute little, like, food stalls, like a night market on the side of the street in one of these random towns that, like, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, you just drive
through. So we're like, okay, let's stop here for some food. We pulled over on the right. There was people there. They're like, oh, yeah, park the bike here. And once we got off the bikes is when we were like, is this sketchy or not?
I'm not even going to lie. Before we even got off the bikes, I was like, I don't really want to stop here. And I think I said something to you, and you're like, we don't know what else is open. Like, there's nothing open down the road. It was like after 10 p.m. at this point.
Exactly. It was really late. Things closed, and I was thinking we were going to get there, get into our room, and like not have anything to eat at all. I probably shouldn't have said that, but it is what it is. It's done now. So we went and we sat down to eat, and there was this guy that was there, like a customer that was eating, and he was a local.
Yeah, he was like a table over from us,
and
but
he was
facing
like
us,
warning us, like, oh, don't be careful with your phones. People are going to steal your phones.
Yeah.
Like, don't leave your stuff out. Like, well, we didn't have our stuff out, but like, he was just like, oh, so many terrible things happen to people here. It's not safe and all this. You going on the motorbikes by yourselves. That's not okay. All of this. Like, he really was like making us feel really uncomfortable. And we didn't want to be there, and we wanted to get out as soon as possible.
Yeah, he was saying he had like a guest house. I think he might have been trying to sell us to go stay at his guest house.
I think that's what he was doing. I think he's like, oh yeah, come and stay at my place.
Yeah, but he was telling, like, he was like, yeah, I had a guest stay with me, and they had their passport and everything stolen.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It was
I don't know. But anyway, before this guy started talking, the alarm bells were ringing in the back of our heads saying this isn't a good spot to be in. And then we ordered food. Well, we tried to order food.
Yeah. And my Bahasa's okay. I spent a lot of time in Indo, so like at least when it comes to food, my Bahasa's like
yeah. You have a working Bahasa that you can order food and get what you order.
Yeah, I can get
for the majority of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. Now we had came from Malaysia, so they speak Bahasa there as well, but it's Malay Bahasa, so it's a little bit different, but very similar. And again, I can order food in Bahasa, and like he's just like spewing all this like all this stuff at me, and I'm like, no, like just like chicken and rice, like
Yeah.
Chicken and rice, it's fine.
We ended up getting
he kept bringing food over and bringing food over.
4 different courses and like so much food, and we had to get up and eventually be like, no, we've had enough.
No,
we need
like
to go.
no, yeah.
Like this guy was getting us for everything he could.
Yeah.
And
so that just felt a little like yucky, to be honest. Like
it wasn't unsafe
because I wasn't, I know I didn't order some of that food. Like I know what I was ordering, and I didn't order a lot of that food, and he kept bringing it over. So then we felt kind of like obligated because we were like, well, we don't want to be rude, but at the same time, like if we're feeling yucky in a situation, like why do I have to? I shouldn't be worrying about whether I'm being nice or not. Like I need to, But I think a lot of people struggle with that. They're like, oh, I felt uncomfortable. It felt like a yucky situation, but I didn't want to insult someone. Well, I didn't want to be rude. But at the same time, like because I have a working level of Bahasa when it comes to ordering food, I knew what I was ordering. What I was ordering is not what was coming out. So he full on was just
taking advantage. He was just scamming us into buying way more stuff than he ordered. So yeah, we ended up leaving as soon as we could. Then we got up and we paid and we left, and we got ripped off, obviously. And then we carried on to Bukit Lawang.
Yeah, like everything ended up being
like nothing actually happened. And then like there was a period for like where we got like separated for a minute on the way to Bukit Lawang, which was late at night in the like sticks of the country, and there was a lot of bikes coming, and like that's sketchy too because like you don't know, like you're very vulnerable when you're on a bike by yourself. It's a very vulnerable situation.
And as a woman, I've spent a good amount of time in Indonesia. Indonesia is my favorite place in the entire world to go, but I don't ride around in the middle of the night by myself.
Right.
Anywhere, really. But I know of people who have gotten, like, knocked off their bikes and, like, robbed because they can see that you're a foreigner.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to put myself in that situation, so I felt uncomfortable. And I was like, Ryan, you have to stay by me. Like, you can't go that far ahead. Like, I am a woman... in a foreign place,
couldn't see, so
and I can't see well in the dark, specifically like with like the lights of other vehicles like coming towards me. It blinds me, and I have a hard time with my eyes adjusting back to the dark. So I'm like, you have to stay by me. Like I know people who have been knocked off their motorbikes at night to be robbed and assaulted, and I don't want that happening. So you have to stay by me. Like they're not going to do that if you're a man.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes like as a guy
I definitely forget. That.
Like, you forget. I'm like, no, like, you, like, they are fine. Like, they might rob you. They might be like, give me your money. And then at that point, you're like, I have no money. We can look together. Maybe we'll find some change. I don't have any money. But, like, I'm like, no, like, I'm worried for my physical well-being.
Yeah.
Again, we ended up getting to where we were going, and everything worked out.
Yeah, we got there, and it was fine. Except for the food poisoning that came the day after.
Yeah, the food poisoning that came for me 2 days after.
I got it the next morning, and you got it...
2 days after, where I had to be rushed out of the jungle.
Yeah, we had to evacuate from the jungle, which was not good. You were sick for like a week, but...
Yeah, like literally. I was...
Like, couldn't leave the bed
Couldn't leave the bed for almost a week. And then after that... didn't feel right for like weeks. Weeks.
Yeah.
It took me I've never had food poisoning like that ever in my life. I hope I never get food poisoning like that again. It was the most horrific experience
Yeah.
So my body wasn't safe.
So, yeah, but my point is, like, you get those alarm bells ringing in the back of your head. Pay attention to them when you're traveling. Just take yourself out of the situation.
It's a trust your gut. It's a trust your gut. Even, you just listen to it and you trust it.
And stay on the safer side of things. And there's always going to be somewhere else you can go.
Yeah. I trusted my gut hard one time when I was in Kuala Lumpur solo traveling. So everyone says, like, make sure you get in the marked cab. Make sure, the cab driver has, like, the ID on the back of, like, the little, like, cab window. And, look at the license number. Look at all these things. I did all of those things. Because the thing is, sometimes you can do everything right. And things still go
wrong.
Awry. And that's where it's like you have to trust that gut instinct. So I was in Kuala Lumpur solo traveling. I needed to get back to the airport. I go down to where the taxis are picking up. I get in a marked taxi. Taxi on the front, taxi on the side. I even looked at the license plate. I get in, he has his taxi ID in the back. It is a legitimate taxi. I get in and he goes, "Oh, are you a student?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not a student." And he's like, "Oh, are you on holiday?" And I was like, "Kind of. I travel full time." And he's like, "Oh, what do you do for work?" Sometimes when there's a language barrier, it's just kind of easier to be like, "I work online. I make websites." I don't really make websites. As we know, if you're listening to this, we don't make websites. We're content creators. But like, it's hard to explain that sometimes, especially because this is quite a few years back now. So like, it doesn't really translate well. So I'm just like, "Oh, I make websites. Easy. I'm a photographer and I make websites." They go, "Oh, wow, I need a website."
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay, like, what kind of website are you looking for?" I'm just kind of like, I have no intent of like, anything further than this, right? And he's like, "Oh, I need some pictures and I need a website." And I'm like, "Okay, maybe." Like, at this time I was getting a lot of clients this way, and I was doing a lot of photography shoots and a lot of content creation shoots from organically meeting people. I was doing a lot of work in like Indonesia and like the Philippines and, around Thailand at this time. So I'm like, okay, like maybe he needs stuff done. He's like, "Oh, I have a spa." I'm like, okay, there's spas everywhere.
Yeah.
There's spas everywhere. Like that, no alarm bells were going off. So he's like, "I have a spa." And I'm like, okay. He's like, "Yeah, I need some pictures of the spa rooms and I need some pictures of my staff and then I need it all put on the website." And I'm like, okay, like that might be something I could do. And he's like, "Yeah, I have my website and stuff now if you want to look at it." So I was like, okay, sure. Like, I'll entertain this. Maybe this will go somewhere. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Let me look at this spa. Let me look at these photos. So he's like, "What's your WhatsApp number?" And I'm like, "Sure." Again, this is still not a weird interaction. I give him my WhatsApp number. And he's going on more and more. He's like, "Oh, I want a big banner on the top of the website. I need a new this. I need a new that." And he's going into details of the website. So I'm like, okay. And he's like, "I need all the women's face like blurred out in the photos." And I'm like, okay. Like, again, it's still not like registering to me.
Different cultures,
different things. And I know in a lot of places, sometimes women don't want their face on the internet. They would rather not.
Like
so I'm like,
thing.
yeah. So I'm like, okay, like maybe they just don't want their face on the internet, but maybe it's them like, maybe we could do like pictures of like not their faces, but like just like, other stuff. Cause I'm thinking spa still, right?
Right.
And then he's like, "Do you give massages?" And I'm like, "No, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm not a massage therapist." Again, it's still like, I think it's a spa. I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Do you have friends that give massages?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think I have any friends that are massage therapists. Maybe back in the States, but not here." Going right over my head. Because again, I'm thinking this is a legit spa. And he goes, "Oh, because Western women get a lot of money when they give massages." And I'm like, yeah, in Western cultures, massage therapists can get paid pretty well. And then he's like, "Oh, it's a shame you don't give massages." And I was like, no, I'm not that good. I wouldn't be any good at giving massages. And he's like, oh, well, okay, on our website, I'm going to need all of these pictures put on. And now pictures start coming through my phone. Now we're driving in a cab. I'm in his cab by myself. We're on a highway going fast. And because it's a highway, it's just like literally like 12 lanes of freaking traffic. Mm-hmm. There is nothing on the side of the road. There is nothing at all. At this point, I always, when I'm traveling solo or whenever I'm in a cab by myself, I have my Google Maps up.
Yeah, so
because
you can see.
I'm seeing where we are, where we're going. If he's going off course, I am being like, hey, Google Maps says you should go this way. Like, I am on it when I am by myself, which is exhausting, but you have to be.
I do the same thing when we're traveling together in a taxi.
Yeah, so it's like I'm tracking where we are and where we're going. Because I'm vulnerable. I'm a woman by myself. So then he's like, oh, are you traveling alone? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Because I'm getting photos that are suggestive photos of women, and it's starting to click what kind of massage he's talking about. Right. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's peppering these questions in. Like, are you traveling alone? Do you have a husband? In with like, oh, I'm going to need bios written for my staff. So like he's kind of like getting me off guard with these questions and then going back into a normal conversation. And I'm starting to get a little weirded out at this point. And the straw that broke the camel's back was he goes, on the banner, I need to put in big letters, free condom included. And I'm just like, and it all hit me. Everything that he was saying now made sense. All of his weird questions. Everything. So I immediately go, oh, that kind of website? I don't make those kind of websites. And yeah, my husband's at the airport waiting for me, and my dad's works at the embassy of Australia or like something like that. Or that's what I said. I was like, oh yeah, my dad works at the embassy of Kuala Lumpur. And I don't know, something about Australia. I said, I just started lying, like straight up lying that like I had a husband waiting for me. My dad was this big wig, like he's in and out of Kuala Lumpur all the time, and like just started spewing. And then I was like, oh, I was like, you don't take card, do you? Knowing that I had to pay cash for this cab. And he goes, no, only cash. And I go, oh, you need to stop because I'm looking and there is this giant rest stop coming up. And then he was like, no, we don't need to stop. And there's ATMs at the airport. And I said, no, you need to stop, and you need to stop now. There's a rest stop like on the left. You need to exit left now. There's a rest stop. We get to the rest stop. Luckily, I was only in Kuala Lumpur a couple days, so like I just have a small carry-on backpack. That's it. I have nothing in the trunk. I have nothing. I grab my carry-on backpack. I go inside, and I immediately look for a family. And I see like a woman with her husband and their 3 kids, and I go up, I go, hey, can I just stand by you for a while? I think my cab driver keeps asking me about massages and like free condoms, and I'm like freaking out at this point. So I don't even know if I'm making that much sense, but she got what I was saying, and was like, where are you going? Because she sees my backpack and that like, I'm not from there. And I was like, the airport. And she goes, so are we, you're coming with us. Yeah. And I went to the airport with this family, and it was just trusting my gut and then being very firm and like full on lying and saying I had all these people in all these high places. And like, I don't know, like, was he going to bring me to the airport? Maybe. Was he going to have someone waiting in the airport? Maybe. I don't know what he was going to do. So I had to change the narrative as fast as I could. Yeah. And I always say, I'm like, look for a woman, because every single woman ever has been in some sort of situation where they have felt unsafe around a man. So like, no matter where you are, like they're going to get it. So I looked for a woman with kids, and I was like, can I just stand by you? Yeah. I didn't know how I was going to get out of there at that point. Like safety was number one, and everything else could have been figured out. But that was probably like my scariest moment, like in that cab, when I figured out exactly how weird it was. And like, how was I going to get out of that? Right. How was I going to remove myself from that situation? Because how do you? You're on this highway. Yeah, exactly. And luckily I had Google Maps up, so I saw that there was a rest stop, and then I literally wouldn't drop it. I was like, no, you're bringing me there now. So I was able to take back control of the situation, take back control of that narrative. But, I mean, you can do everything right.
Yeah, there's no saying he would have pulled over.
There's no saying he would have pulled over, but he did.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I did everything right. So in that kind of situation, like, sometimes. But I wouldn't not travel as a solo female again. But I didn't go back to Kuala Lumpur since then. I really, I'm like, I don't really want to.
Yeah.
Like, we were in Southeast Asia now for 6 months, and Kuala Lumpur is one of the best big hubs of an airport to, like, go in and out of. And Malaysia's beautiful. We went to Malaysia.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't want to go to Kuala Lumpur. I don't want to. Unfortunately, it kind of soured that situation.
Right. And that can happen anywhere, so...
Mm-hmm. It can happen anywhere. It does. It happens everywhere.
Yeah.
But it was just scary because I felt like it was close.
Yeah.
Close call that I didn't want to be trafficked.
No.
And the outcome, luckily I got out of the situation. Luckily I found a family. Luckily, like, I did everything right and I was alert, so things could have been a sinister story, and it's not.
These are things that I don't really have to think about on a day-to-day as a man, you know?
No, you don't.
Like, at all. The most I have to think about is someone's going to rob me or someone's going to assault me. That's it.
Yeah, like get beat up.
Get beat up for my things that I don't want to give up. That's it.
Yeah. I'm getting sold.
Yeah. Or a gun or a knife or something like that.
Yeah.
But, like, it's all, like, it's not like that, yeah.
But that's why when people hear that, like, I travel as a solo female, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so dangerous. And, like, of course there's inherent dangers everywhere, but...
There's inherent dangers at home, too.
It happens everywhere, so it's not specific to that place. Still go. Like, still go and just keep your wits about you, because you can be at a Walmart down the street in the U.S. and, like, you can be followed around the Walmart and someone wait for you in the parking lot, which is no different than anywhere else. Unfortunately, existing as a woman is inherently dangerous.
Yeah. You got any other tips for...
Yeah. Okay, on a lighter note, let's transition out of me almost being sold into human trafficking. And let's talk about some tips. Now, we talked about my top tip is Google Maps. Is keeping Google Maps up and sharing your location.
When you're in a taxi or in some other sort of private car or whatever. When we're traveling, we always share. Our location is always turned on to each other and to, like, maybe someone back home too, so that they know where we are.
Just in case.
So
they can get our last ping.
Honestly, it's more for, like, when we get separated that we can find each other. It's not like...
It is. That's what it's for.
It's not for, like, if I get stolen, this is where I am.
I think like that.
Yeah, another thing that we do is we put an air tag in each bag. Mm-hmm. So, like, if a bag gets stolen, you can kind of find it, or if it gets misplaced.
Or if, like, our phone isn't working, or our phone's dropped or something, but we have a backpack on us, you could still track me with my air tag.
Right.
So it's kind of a double.
And then decoy wallets.
Because your stuff.
I usually carry a decoy wallet all the time when I'm traveling. Regardless, just because, like, I'll put in an expired ID, an old credit card, and some little bit of cash. So that way, if someone does, like, try something and they're like, give me your wallet, you just pick it out, hand it over, and say, I don't want any problems.
Yeah.
And that's it. They go on, they're happy, they think that they got all this stuff, and they didn't. But.
Yeah, just don't put your debit card or your credit card in your decoy wallet.
No.
Because if you lose one of those... You're not getting a replacement.
Not until you get back home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so make sure you don't put that in there. I had 2 debit cards skimmed on me in the same day. The one bank allowed 14 transactions to go through in a row at an ATM. Like, they drained my account. My other one was a Chase account. They were much better. They allowed, like, 2 transactions to go through, or 3, and then flagged it and, like, called me and was like, hey, you had, like, 3 of the same transactions go through. Is that you? And I was like, no, they fixed it immediately and it was fine. Mm-hmm. But now I'm in a foreign country with no debit cards because before I went, again, I was like 2 debit cards, 2 debit accounts. If I lose one card, I have a second card. That way I can transfer money between them if I need to.
Yeah.
And if something happens to one card, I have a backup. So I didn't.
Both of them are taken out.
Both of them were taken out within the same day. And I learned that you can do cash advance from an ATM on your credit card, but you need your credit card PIN number. So you have to look at your individual credit card. But I was doing where I was cash advancing like the biggest amount that I could. In most ATMs, it's like $200, $250. Biggest amount I could, and then paying it immediately.
Usually there's a fee for cash advance. Some cards they don't. But
my one card didn't have a fee for the cash advance, and even if it did, at that point I wasn't.
You just need the money.
I wasn't in a
stock.
I wasn't in a position to be too picky about it.
Yeah.
But I had to wait for that PIN number. So in the meantime, I found a job at a hostel, and I started working for slumber party hostels, which ended up being a great experience for me. So it led to really good things.
Right.
So not every time like that's like unsafe, right? Like my stuff was stolen. So like that's like unsafe because I had no money. I didn't know I could stay places because I could book an accommodation with a credit card. Online. But like other than that,
like buying food or
I could go to the fancy Western restaurants that accept credit card.
That was it.
So I could go to Western restaurants that accept credit card, and I could go and I could book an accommodation online with a credit card. Now I had 3 credit cards, 2 Visas, and an Amex. Amex is not taken most places unless you're in big cities. Visas are taken everywhere. That's like your best bet. So I had 2 Visas. So I was able to book a room and stuff like that. But I didn't know at first like what I was going to do because it was so scary. Especially because then it takes like a week. So I had to get a PIN. I had to call up, request a PIN number. Which again costs money because you have to call and like then you're put on hold for 40 minutes, right?
So, international rates.
Yeah, but I had no choice. I had to do it. I Wi-Fi called them, so it wasn't. Okay. It ended up being free, but still, I didn't know I could do that, so I Wi-Fi called them. Then I had to wait like a week for the PIN number to get mailed to my father's house.
So he could call you and tell you.
So he could text it, send me a picture of the PIN number, so then I could do the cash advance. So it ended up working out fine because I ended up getting a job and like. Or a volunteer experience, and everything played out, but it was scary.
Yeah.
I was crying. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no money. I'm crying on the phone to the one bank that's like, yeah, there's discrepancies. You didn't know where your last charge was and when the ATM started charging you, so we're not returning your money. And like it was an actual nightmare of my financial security.
Right. One thing I always do is, as soon as I'm done using an ATM with a debit card, I go on the app and I lock the card.
That was a pro tip from who?
From you. But it's really easy. You just type in, like, if you have Chase, you could just type in lock card into, like, the virtual assistant, and it just does it.
We both use Chase, and we both like Chase. I have another account with another bank that I do not like. But I do like my Chase account. This is not sponsored at all, but Chase, if you want to, we're available. Let's talk.
And then what else? Other safety tips.
If we're on that same boat, I don't keep a bunch of money in that checking account just in case. So a debit card, when money gets transferred out, the money's gone.
Yeah.
The money's gone. You can try to get it back, but sometimes it's difficult to get back. Sometimes it takes some time. So I try not to keep much money in the checking account itself and freeze and unfreeze the card.
Right.
So then if something were to happen, like they're just denied and the only thing you're out is access to that card. And again, worst case scenario, as an American, you go to a hostel, you look for another American, you ask if they have Cash App, Zelle, Venmo. Again, you need to have all these apps downloaded before you get to the other country because Venmo won't download outside the country. So it's an American thing, but you look for them. And you find an American that has the same money transferring app as you, and then you convince them to let you transfer them money and then go to the ATM and get the money out for you.
Yeah.
That's like your...
That's pretty common. And
it's super common. People do this.
It's not a weird thing to ask a traveler. Like, if you've been traveling long enough, you know someone that this has happened to. So it's kind of normal for that to happen.
Yeah.
In Europe, they use Revolut. It's another app.
Same but different.
Same thing.
So so if you're in Europe, what do you do if you're European?
You use Revolut.
So you go to a hostel and you find another European and you say, hey, can I transfer you some money? Please take it out of the ATM for me. I'm poor. Mm-hmm. It's not weird, we promise. We promise it's not weird. It's so common. You'll hear someone in the hostel common area every morning after a big party night asking for this because someone had a little bit too much fun and lost their card and now they can't get any money out.
Yeah.
So it'll be fine.
Another thing that we have is like for safety, we've stayed in a couple sketchy spots. Not like nothing ever happened, but we have a little emergency door lock that goes on the inside of the door that is like a wedge. And
it's like a deadbolt.
Almost, yeah.
Almost
it
like a
hooks
deadbolt.
into the deadbolt and then we wedge it down so that no one can open the door.
Yeah, everyone's seen
outside.
those like little hangers that come up underneath the door and like unlock it in the hotels and.
Or like even if you're staying at a guest house and you're a bit weirded out and they have a key.
Yeah, because a lot of places have keys. They do have keys to all the rooms, obviously, to go in and clean them. But
like we've had places that we've gone to and we've come back and there's someone been in the room.
Yeah, and we're like, check all the stuff.
This wasn't here. Like this has moved around. What's going on?
Check all the stuff.
Like, we've got a bunch of stuff in here. We got to check everything that's still here.
And we haven't had any
never
issues.
had anything stolen, but like
they were just being sweet and going in and tidying up the room for us. And
right.
But you don't know. Not everyone has sweet intentions. Some people are more sinister. Mm-hmm. So the deadbolt. But the only thing with the deadbolt is you have to be inside the room for that to work. So if you're leaving the room, that doesn't work.
It doesn't work, yeah.
If we're leaving the room, we just make sure we lock everything up. And if it's a place that we don't feel safe, we take it with us, which can be a pain because it's heavy.
Yeah. But yeah, it's more for when you're sleeping.
It's more for when you're sleeping or in the room, so you don't have to worry about someone breaking into your room. Because I've heard horror stories. Mm-hmm. One specifically that stands out to me. Now, I was not there, but I met a girl who was backpacking, and she had been in... What's like that place? It's like the ultimate luxury. They have all the little villas out in the water.
Is that Fiji?
Fiji.
Or is it the Maldives?
Maldives. She was in the Maldives. She went to the Maldives. And the Maldives, you can backpack the Maldives. There's hostels in the Maldives. Like, you can totally do it. And I was talking to her in the hostel. She goes, the Maldives was the most dangerous place or the most unsafe I ever felt in all of my backpacking. This girl was a very seasoned backpacker. Solo woman backpacker. She's an awesome girl. And was like, the most unsafe I ever felt was in the Maldives. And I was like, why? And she goes, well, I was in a hostel, like a big hostel, like a nice hostel. And I was in like an 18, 20 person dorm. And during the night, people broke into the hostel dorm room with guns and robbed everyone. She goes, a lot of the people didn't even wake up during it though, because they weren't loud. Mm. And she goes, I slept through it. And I had my phone on charger, and every bunk had its own like outlet. So you charge your stuff in your outlet. And she goes, and I always just, when I'm staying in a hostel, put my phone underneath my pillow so that like it's not getting stolen in the night. Like I'm sleeping on it. Like I'm gonna know if someone reaches under my pillow and steals it. She goes, they reached under my pillow and stole my phone from underneath my sleeping head, and I didn't wake up. Yeah. And that was in the Maldives. And she said overall the Maldives was one of the most unsafe places that she ever felt. Mm. But then you also go to the Maldives for ultimate luxury. So when we say that it can happen anywhere and everywhere, it can. It really does.
And anywhere.
Anywhere.
Other things, travel insurance?
Travel insurance would be, I think, the biggest preemptive safety measure.
Yeah, if you're hurt, if you're
sick.
If
things get stolen, a lot of times your stuff is insured in travel insurance. Yeah.
A lot of times, up to a certain value.
If they lose your luggage.
Yes.
Your travel insurance.
Yeah, flights and things like that, cancellations, all of that, travel insurance. We use Safety Wing. We have a link. We'll put it in the description below. I've never had to make a claim, so I don't know how that part of it works, but they do cover, like, snow sports, they cover motorbiking, they cover surfing, things like that. A lot of other companies will exclude those things.
Adventure sports.
Adventure sports, yeah. If they find out that you've done it and you got hurt doing that, they won't cover you. Safety Wing covers you. And yeah, but I haven't had to make a claim yet, so I can't speak to how easy that is. But as far as getting coverage, it's good.
Overall, though, I say don't let the fear of potentially being in an unsafe situation stop you from being, like, putting yourself out there and potentially being in, like, these once in a lifetime and amazing situations. Because for every scary, unsafe story that we have to tell, we have tenfold of, like, amazing experiences and like incredible things we saw and amazing people we've met and opportunities that we've came across that we would have never been able to otherwise experience. Like, even in my darkest stories, like, I made friends with a woman that I'll be eternally grateful to, and like had an incredible experience through her, and like that, like how helpful people are. Mm-hmm. So for every darkness and for every horrible thing, there's going to be light.
Yeah. And I had to spend time and sit down and actually think about when I was feeling unsafe, because it like didn't happen that much.
Yeah.
I was like, when did I feel unsafe? I don't know.
Yeah, there was definitely a little preparation for you to go into this, because for the most part,
we had a very pleasant trip. It was wonderful.
Always.
Like,
yeah. I mean, I have traveled extensively. I've traveled solo. I've done some group trips, and we've traveled together. And for the most, 9 out of 10 times, probably more than that. Mm-hmm. I feel completely safe and at home. And usually I feel safer in other countries than I do when I'm in the States. I probably feel the most unsafe
coming back to San Francisco from Japan after spending a month in Japan.
Yeah.
Was a bit of a culture shock right there. I was like, oh, wow. This is sketch.
Yeah, I feel I have the most unsafe feeling stories when in the States.
All right.
All right.
I think that's it for this week.
I hope that helped you, and that can help you, be prepared when you go out on your adventure to do a couple things preemptively so that you can travel and feel good and safe, and remember to always listen to your gut. That is it for this week's episode of the Rangeless Travel Podcast, and we will see you next week. If you want more from us right now and you cannot wait until next week, go ahead and find us on Instagram, on YouTube, and over on TikTok. We'll chat next week. Bye.